Hi everyone, today I wanted to review this happy hacking keyboard that I finally got. I'd had my eye on one of these for a long time, so I was excited to finally get my hands on one. Before I get into this, I'd just like to make sure that you all know I did get this keyboard for free, but of course I'll be doing my best to give it an objective review. So first things first, let me talk a little bit about the specs of this keyboard. It has Torp key switches. And these are not mechanical, but of course the keyboard does not need to be mechanical for it to be nice. This specific happy hacking keyboard that I got is the Professional Hybrid Type S, so I believe it has a 45 gram actuation force, which is on the lighter end, but it has a real nice tactility to it. These Type S switches are supposed to be more quiet, which is also worth noting. As you can see, it's obviously a 60%-ish design, and it's also Bluetooth. I don't really use Bluetooth that often just because I like to be wired in, but I used it a couple times for my phone and stuff like that, and it's nice to have the option to do that. There's also software that comes with it, so that way you can design your own key map, but I'll talk a little bit about that later. And one other thing, there are two kickstands in the back, allowing you to adjust this to just about any angle you could want. One of the things that makes this keyboard special is the aesthetics. I really don't like how mechanical keyboard has become somewhat synonymous with gaming keyboard, and luckily this is not marketed as a gaming keyboard. That doesn't mean it can't be used for a gaming keyboard, but I just think that separating keyboards into gaming keyboards and normal keyboards is kind of silly. But anyways, this kind of has the same design as the IBM Model M from like the mid-1980s, except it's really sleek, so I just think that looks really nice. This is something where if other people see you using it, you're not going to cringe at the like rainbow backlighting that all these keyboards have now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Although I kind of think there's something wrong with that, I just kind of hate it. Jokes aside, this is just a good looking keyboard in my opinion. There's also like a darker black option which also looks really nice. Another part of the aesthetics that I need to mention is the sound. In like every single review I watch of this keyboard, it says something about this being the best sounding keyboard out there. I'm not really too particularly passionate about keyboard sounds, but you know, I think it sounds pretty nice, and I'll let you make up your own decision on that because of course it's very subjective. One thing that you might have noticed is this keyboard does not have a standard keyboard layout. The two biggest changes are Control replaces Caps Lock, and of course you still have access to Caps Lock under a function key, and Delete is on the QWERTY row instead of the number row. I personally think that these are really good changes. When I do Control Backspace so often when I'm playing Type Racer or just typing normally, it makes it a lot easier to reach. In addition, I think that the backspace is in a better spot. It took about 30 minutes to an hour to get used to this, but nothing too bad. And of course, if you're going to spend $300 on a keyboard, you'll be willing to put in the time to learn that. It does make it a little bit hard to shift back and forth between this keyboard and other ones, but nothing too severe. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the functionality of this keyboard. Whenever I get a new keyboard, I'm always a little bit concerned that I'm going to be sacrificing functionality for size. But for this one, that's mostly not the case, with one big exception. The arrow keys are a big one with 60% keyboards, and I'd give these like a 6 out of 10 for accessibility. They're accessible with function and then 4 keys on the right side, and so it's not too bad, but I've definitely seen better arrow key function layer placements. Delete is the other one I use a lot for video editing and photo editing, and that's pretty easy with function and then the key in the top right. And honestly, I'm not too sure what the base layer key on that is, but the shift one is a tilde. But now I need to mention the one big problem I have with this keyboard. I haven't been able to figure out how to control multimedia with this keyboard. There's a volume down and volume up key printed under the function layer, and I feel bad even mentioning this because I feel like it should be working and it's probably my fault, but I haven't been able to get that going. And then I don't even see like a play and pause button printed. One cool thing you can do with this keyboard is you can easily make your own custom key map with software that comes with this keyboard. It's pretty minimalistic, but I'm just as happy with minimalistic software that's easy to use. Alright, now it's time for me to answer the question that other reviewers can't answer nearly as well as I can. How well does this keyboard work for speed typing? But before I cover that, if you're still watching, I'd just like to ask you to subscribe because only 8.2% of my viewers are subscribed, and I'd really like to get that number up. Also, if you want to turn on notifications too, that'd be great. I die a little bit every time I have to say that, but you know, anything for the subs. Alright, let me talk about typing fast, that's what I'm good at. So right off the bat, let me tell you, it's just as possible to type as fast on this keyboard as any other keyboard. So this is a fairly subjective section. While I love to type on this thing, and I've been pretty much using it non-stop since I've got it as my primary keyboard, I go back and forth on whether I can type as fast with it or not. Of course, this is like a 2 word per minute difference on typing websites, and so for most people, who really cares about that? So if you're like me and trying to maximize your speed, a 2 word per minute difference is a fairly significant deal. That's not to say that I won't gain that slight LBPM drop back with a little bit more practice on it, but just for now I'm a little bit slower with it. Because of how nice of a tactile bump there is in this, I think I've had pretty good accuracy with it. But again, this thing really just is fun to use and it feels good to type with, which for most people, that's the most important thing. Okay, it's time for the sound test. The audio quality didn't turn out great, but I think it's good enough for you to get a solid idea of what this sounds like. So I'm gonna shut up and cut the music and just let you listen. Definitely let me know what you think about how this keyboard sounds. I've heard from a lot of people who love it, but also some people who hate the sound of it. So, should you buy this keyboard? I really hope that everybody gets to try one of these, but the reality is I couldn't recommend to the majority of people that they drop $300 on a keyboard. That's not to say that this isn't a great keyboard though. It's one of the nicest ones I've ever tried. And I do think that this is a great keyboard for some people. If you're working in an office where you want a nice keyboard but not something that's too loud or flashy, this is the keyboard for you. The switches also make it worth purchasing. If you want this type of switch, then your options are fairly limited, and so the Happy Hacking line of keyboards is definitely worth checking out. That's pretty much all I have to say about this keyboard, so thanks again to Fujitsu for making this possible, and thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.